Things are heating up in Ukraine, and unfortunately a majority of Americans simply don't seem to care. This could very well turn out to be a turning point for the United States, and the way things are headed, I don't think it will end well. Recently, we were told that China and Russia are in agreement with Ukraine, and this essentially makes the United States powerless. Meanwhile, Putin and Obama are trapped in a macho game of chicken, and neither one wants to back down in fear of looking weak. If Obama backs down, he will be perceived as being weak for not placing economic sanctions on Russia. Then again, if Putin backs down, he will be perceived as weak for not following through on Ukraine. This particular game of chicken could turn out to be very dangerous for the world and the global economy as a whole. So without wasting any more of your time, here are 5 dangerous economic impacts of the Ukrainian crisis. Potential economic impact 1. Rising oil prices. Currently, Russia is the largest exporter of natural gas and the second largest exporter of oil in the world. If Obama decides to place sanctions, it could be a disaster for global oil trade, and we could quite possibly see the death of a petrodollar, which brings me to my next point. Potential economic impact 2. The death of a petrodollar. Together, Russia and China control approximately 25% of all foreign-held U.S. debt, creating a potentially disastrous scenario for the United States if they decide to dump the dollar. The only thing that has kept the dollar afloat this long is the fact that it is the world reserve currency, and the fact that other nations are still willing to hoard in trillions in reserves. However, if a nation like China or Russia were to suddenly dump their reserves and start trading oil in a commodity, such as gold or another currency, all hell would break loose. Potential economic impact 3. Higher gold prices. I've been predicting for some time now that gold's bull market is far from over, and other economists, such as Peter Schiff, think gold will go to the moon. Currently, there are certain economic factors driving the price of gold down, as I've outlined in the past. But if things really start getting bad in Ukraine, I suspect we will see investors frantically run to gold, and this will drive up the price significantly in a very short period of time. Potential economic impact 4. Lower stock prices. While gold and other commodities tend to increase in times of crisis, stocks almost always go down. If things get worse in the Ukraine, I suspect we will see a run on stocks, as investors finally realize just how fragile the US economy really is. Potential economic impact 5. Investors lose billions. In addition to everything else, one Russian news source has suggested that the Russian parliament may confiscate assets and property of American businesses if we decide to place sanctions. And I quote, "The upper house of Russia's parliament is mulling measures allowing property and assets of European and US companies to be confiscated in the event of sanctions being adopted against Russia over its threatened military intervention in Ukraine." End quote. This includes everything from retailers, mining companies, and banks. If the US decides to place sanctions and Russia follows through, it would be an absolute catastrophe, as some companies have billions invested in Russia, which could be gone overnight. And those are just some of the possible scenarios. While there's no telling what might happen in the Ukraine, what we do know is that things are incredibly dangerous at this period of time. Let's pray for peace in the Ukraine, and that economic war is avoided. An economic war is the last thing America needs right now, especially with two powerhouses like Russia and China who control about 25% of all foreign-held debt. The unfortunate reality is that a majority of Americans have no idea just how weak our economy really is, and how leveraged up with debt we are. Once the sleeping giant wakes up to this reality, it will be too late.